Hello class. In this video we're going to do a few simple things. We're really going to look at adding background color to the image to sort of, instead of making it independent drawings, making it a unified drawing. So basic sort of page sort of unification things. But really what we're going to be learning about is gradients, and we're going to do that through the sky. And we're going to look at gradients other times in other videos and in other weeks moving forward, but this is basically the basics of gradient, which is a little tricky to use. But this video should get you through it. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to add green to the ground to make like this building is set on grass. I'm going to put like a blue sky, which would be a gradient up above for the sky, and you'll see the whole page will sort of come together as one unified drawing. So I'm first going to go to layers. I'm going to make two new layers. Well, I'll make one layer. It's just because of the way this was set up here, put it all the way to the top. So I'm going to click on that layer and drag it all the way to the bottom. The reason for that is I want all my real drawing to sit on top of these colors. So if I put it down here, it makes it nice and easy to do. So I'm going to label that ground, and I'm going to make a new layer. Double click there, call that one sky. And I'm going to just get the ground out of the way first. And for ground, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a green field. So I can come over to my colors. I can turn my stroke to no fill or no color, and I can click on my fill color and select a color. Of course, grass is green, right? But the trick with grass and really anything in vegetation in renderings is to actually use a color pretty close to yellow. And that's because a couple reasons. One is the contrast tends to work well in drawings that way, but two, it also looks more lively. If you notice in the spring, the greens of most plants are much more vibrant. They're yellower. It sort of gives us the symbol of life and growth and new beginnings and all these things that really can play up in a rendering. And as the sun wanes on, it goes to greener and greener, and if it gets too hot and not enough water, ultimately to brown. So using a sort of a yellowy color, or pretty close to a yellowy color, actually can work pretty well. So you can see how my setup is here on that. That looks pretty good. Again, all of these colors will come back and reevaluate at a later point in time, but I think for now that's pretty good. So I'll set that to green. I'll just grab my rectangle tool, click and drag right there, and boom, there's the grass. All right, so I'll go down, and I'm going to lock this layer, and I'm going to go up to a sky. And of course, skies are blue. At least that's what we're going to start with, the concept of blue right now. I'm going to go and grab a blue color. I'll go pretty light for now. And I'll do the same thing. I'll just grab a rectangle to start right here. Boom, rectangle. There we go. So right away, I've already got a sky and I've got grass, and it's begun to sort of unify the drawing in a nice way. But we want to spend a couple more minutes on the sky, and we're going to make it a gradient. Not only because adding things, and we're going to go over in following weeks how to add more detail, more gradients, and more texture, which makes the drawing more interesting. So in some sense we're going to be doing that because of that. But also, if you really look at a sky, you'll actually notice that skies on a clear day are indeed a gradient. And the way they usually work is that they are much more of a richer, deeper blue up high, and a lighter blue, almost to even white on the horizon. That's even in the midday. Of course, at sunset, we know that the color varies from top to bottom of the sky, and so on, and sunrise, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to sort of emulate, and I'll just add that little bit of interest. Now, because of the drawing, we don't necessarily want to use a super deep, rich blue, but also because we aren't even looking straight up. We're even, at the top of my drawing here, it's not like it's all that high in the sky. So we'll use more of the paler blues to whites to make this gradient. Now, gradients are a bit tricky when you're first doing them because it's a three-step process. It's here, here, and here. You all notice that it's all the same symbol, and you have to do it in the right order, in the right sequence, and you're going to get frustrated when you first do it. You just have to work through the steps. So this is basically the basics of gradient. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my object. Then what I need to do is I need to set my fill to be a gradient. So that's going to be this little button right here. I'm going to click. Now you notice it's going to change it to black and white. It always does that, so that blue that I just tried to get to make a nice sky, or whatever gradient color you're doing, is going to be lost, and so be it. That's the way it is. There's ways sort of around it, but no super convenient way. So that's the first gradient. The second gradient is over here, and because we hit the first one, it automatically popped up. This is controlling the colors. In this case, the default from white to black. Well, we want to change this to a light blue to a slightly darker, richer blue color. The way we're going to do that is we're going to click on one or the other. I'm going to double click on this side. It's going to pull up this dialog box. Now it's annoying because it's black. It wants to set it to that color, so I want to change it. I'm going to go to HSB to get color values even possible. And I'm going to come down and click approximately where I think might be. I'm just going to go. I'll come back and adjust this using these things. Maybe I'll do it now. It's a little too dark, a little too bright. I'm actually going to pull the darkness just or black just down a little bit. I'm going to saturate it a lot more actually, and I'm going to leave it about in that color range. So we'll start there. I can always adjust it later. And I'm going to come over here and double click on this side, do the same thing, click on this button, go to HSB, start by clicking a click. I'm going to make it more towards the cyan color than I did the original one, and I'm going to make it more saturated as well than I did the original one. So meaning, pulling it much more towards white. I even pull this a little bit this way. So I got these two colors, and I can spend some time adjusting it, and you should too to get it to the way you want. Like I could come back, I'm going to double click here on this one, pull this back up, change it back to HSB, and you know what? I'm just going to maybe make the saturation up a little bit, and then I'm going to play with the color value hue up here just a little bit. And maybe the darkness there. So I'm going to say that's good. Let me make it just a tweak bit darker. So that's 2. That's the second color. The next gradient tool is over here. This one sets the direction. So right now when I click on this button, we see this line. That's basically saying take this color gradient over here and go from that way to that way. But as I mentioned, skies are lighter on the bottom and darker on the top, so we need to get the gradient to go vertical. And for that, you just hit this button and you click and drag the line in the new direction you want to go. And in this case, I'm going to go straight up. But this gradient works. I could go at an angle and it'll be angled, but that's not how skies work, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go straight up. And then that sets the gradient. You can look at it again and maybe tweak it some more. Like, you know what, that's still not quite right. And to a certain extent, again, we're going to be setting colors later. So just get it to something good like that. And that is your gradient sky and your basic gradients. All gradients work off that basic concept. We're going to look at a few more different ways of doing it following up. But for now, that's the basic background and basic gradient. So I'll end this video here.